Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and Coffee and Cartridges. Today we're going to talk about the 7mm PRC versus the 7mm PRC versus the 7mm PRC. I'll explain. Stay tuned. Before I talk about this versus matchup, let me kind of go back and give a little bit of a short, quick history of the Hornady cartridges. Around the beginning of the 21st century, Hornady began to co-develop some rifle cartridges with companies like Ruger and Thompson Center. I would say that they hit their stride around 2007 when they began to release cartridges like the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 375 Ruger. Fast forward a few years, kind of doing this on their own now, they take that 375 Ruger case and they shorten it by quite a bit so that it'll fit in a short action, and they neck it down to 6.5 millimeters and call it the 6.5 PRC. They took the design philosophy of the 6.5 Creedmoor with the long lead for the heavier high BC bullets and the tolerances akin to a match grade chamber, but put it in that 375 Ruger case shortened, which will have more powder and be more suitable for a hunting cartridge compared to the Creedmoor. They went back to that 375 Ruger case once again, but this time they didn't shorten the case, they left it the full size and just simply necked it down to 30 caliber and called it the 300 PRC. But once again, it was designed for a heavier bullet. And in fact, that bullet's going to seat out so far in the 300 PRC that it's going to be a magnum length action. Well, you know what happened. The 300 PRC become pretty popular. The 6.5 PRC has become very popular. And so the logical thing was, is there going to be a 7mm PRC? Well, for the last couple years, there's been rumors. And then rumors started to get confirmed that it's for sure happening, but we've kind of waited. In this time of waiting, two other 7mm PRCs began to come about from wildcatters. One was called the 7 by 6.5 PRC, or it has many other names now. The other one was the 300 7 PRC. Now, anytime a new cartridge is, developed, produced, is marketed, and is released, the first thing that competent gunsmith and enthusiasts do is think about, what if you tweaked it just a little bit and came out with a wildcat version of it? So some people thought, what if you took the 6.5 PRC and just simply necked it up to 7mm? Other people thought, what if you took the 300 PRC and just simply necked it down to 7mm? So as we're waiting, the past couple of years to hear about the 7mm PRC, many people begin to speculate, what's it going to be like? And usually one of those two thoughts was what people figured it would be. And then, of course, when the SAMI specs was released, we found out that it was neither of those, and that the actual 7mm PRC, as produced by Hornady, would be a standard length action and not fit into a short or a magnum length action, but kind of right in the middle. And of course, it would be the same case, that 375 Ruger case, just necked down to that standard length action. So it'll have the same overall length as, say, a 30-06. Now, some people had already come out with wildcat versions in custom rifles that gunsmiths had built them, and they called it the 7mm PRC. So right now, in existence, there is 3 7mm PRCs. The one that Hornady came out with, the one that was a wildcat from the 6.5 PRC necked up, and the one that was a wildcat from the 300 PRC necked down. If you go to YouTuber Eric Cortana's website right now, which he's a famous F-class shooter, he's been shooting basically that 6.5 necked up version, and he's calling it a 7mm PRC W. There's other names that I've heard of, Primal, and just different names. But it's definitely making an impact in F-class, in PRS, and in bench rest shooting today. And of course, since it's not standardized, it's not semi-spec, it's just a wildcat, everyone thinks that they're the one that came out with it and is calling it their own thing. I think the interesting thing is it's all coming from the competitive shooter segment of the shooting enthusiast. The reverse side, the 300 PRC neck down to 7mm, that was all coming from, you guessed it, the hunting crowd. Because even before the 7mm PRC officially came out, I knew people that was hoping in the hunting crowd that it would be a 300 PRC neck down. That's what they were hoping. But like I said, many people had guns built as a 7mm PRC in both versions before the real version came out. So 7mm PRC versus 7mm PRC versus 7mm PRC. Now, I'll tell you first of all, before I kind of go into the verses, and I'll kind of have a bigger point here, I do tell you that me personally, I thought what Hornady did was just right. I really like the fact that they have 3 cartridges, all named PRC, with ascending calibers and also ascending case lengths, followed by ascending case capacities. I think it makes perfect sense to have a short action, a standard action, and a magnum length action, PRC, with different length cases as the bullets get bigger. It just makes perfect sense to me. And I've said this before, if I personally was going to design a 7mm cartridge, it would have been something very similar to the PRC. I have a short on my channel called 7 PRC in 1 minute. And I basically make the claim on there, if you have a 7 rim mag, should you sell it and get a PRC? And my answer then and still today is more than likely no. Because performance-wise, it's pretty much the same thing. You're going to get about the same velocity and energy and drop and all that as the 7 rim mag. So I don't see a big benefit. Unless you do plan on shooting like 180 to 195 grain bullets. Whether it's, you're just shooting at a mile for fun, whether you actually want to hunt with that bullet or whatever the case, if you have a purpose and an application in mind for shooting that heavy of a bullet, then it's fine, and you'd be better suited with the PRC. In other videos I've said I think the 7 PRC is a modernized 7 rim mag. So it's not really going to perform better than a 7 rim mag, but I like it better personally because has all the modern touches that I like, and it's a more efficient version of it, in my opinion. And in another video, what I called which of the 7mm cartridges is the best designed, I picked the 7mm PRC. And in all honesty, didn't think I would do that starting out. But I can't deny its great design. Is it my personal favorite 7mm? No, it's not. It might not even be in the top 3. It's probably 4th or 5th. So it's not my personal favorite. I like the 7mm 08, I like the 280 AI, I like the 284. And so I'd say the 7 PRC is my 4th favorite. But everything I've said in all those videos, I still stand by, and I haven't changed my mind at all. I just have kind of a balanced viewpoint. I like the cartridge a lot. I think it's an extremely well-designed cartridge. I do think it's becoming overhyped. It's not to say it doesn't deserve the fact that people love it, but very similar to the 6.5 Creedmoor years ago, it became the greatest cartridge of all time without really earning that. And then it's only now that we're starting to realize, not me, but a lot of people are starting to realize that the 6.5 Creedmoor is not quite as amazing as we thought it was 5 or 10 years ago, but it's still a good cartridge. I think the 7mm PRC is heading down that same road. It's going to become unbelievably overhyped and become the greatest cartridge of all time, and then eventually it'll fall into place in a few years where it actually deserves to be. But I think that place is pretty high. So overall, I like the 7mm PRC. How does it compare to these Wildcat versions? Let's assume same twist rate, same chamber design, and basically the only difference is going to be the case capacity, really. I mean, there's not that much difference, and this is not exact, so don't quote me on it, but something like the 7mm PRC that Hornady came out with is going to have about 200 feet per second more than that 7 by 6.5 PRC. And the 7 by 300 PRC is going to have around 200 feet per second more than the actual 7mm PRC. So if we're shooting the same grain bullet, it really just is a matter of how fast do you want it to go. But this brings me back to my overall point here that I find very interesting. Why did these people wildcat these versions before the actual cartridge came out? And it tells you a lot about the different styles of shooting. So the hunting crowd liked the PRC, thought it was pretty cool, thought it would be a good long-range hunting cartridge, and I'm talking 500-600 yards. Also thought it, could be just an all-around good hunting cartridge for elk and moose or whatever. And wouldn't it be cool if you just took the same case with the same amount of powder, necked it down to a 7mm, then it's going to be kind of like your rim mag, but have more power, more powder. It's going to be even faster. It's going to be kind of right there with like the 28 Nosler. It's going to be kind of right there with the 7mm Shooting Times Westerner. It's going to be in that class, and it'll be really cool. And we know that Hornady has been very successful, and we know that it'll probably be popular, therefore lots of rifles will be chambered in that cartridge, and you'd probably be able to find the ammunition at some point. At this day and time right now, at the making of this video, kind of hard to find ammo. But hey, it'd be cool to have this new hunting cartridge similar to those other cartridges, because as good as the 7mm Shooting Times Westerner is, you can't find it. It's basically obsolete. As awesome as the 28 Nosler is, it's just not common. There are rifles that are chambered in it, and they're pretty much all expensive. And it's just not easy to find the bullets for it and all that. So if I want a little bit more power than the 7 Rim Mag, this 7mm PRC, the one that they thought of, would be perfect. And I agree with them. It would have been cool. And it really would have been a good combo with a 300 PRC, just depending, are you wanting to shoot 230 grain bullets, or you want to shoot 180 grain bullets? Are you wanting to shoot at, an elk or a mule deer at 400 yards, or you want to shoot at a moose at 400 yards? Or a grizzly bear. So it could be a good tandem. The 300 PRC could kind of be an Alaskan type model. The 7mm PRC could be a Western rifle. So they thought, oh, that would be awesome. So they went down that route. And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, the competitive shooters did not go down that same route, because they're not about the most speed. However, speed is definitely critical. There's a reason they have 30-inch barrels. It's not just to make the gun heavy so it has less recoil. That's part of it. But it's also to squeeze out as much velocity as possible. However, velocity is not the thing that they're going after. They're going after consistency. That's the name of the game in competitive shooting. And those short, fat case cartridges, whether you're talking about the 6 PPC, the 6 BR, the 6 Dasher, the 6 Creedmoor, the 6 GT, the 284 Winchester, the 6.5 284, even the 300 WSM, all these cartridges that people like to shoot in competitive shooting are similar. They're short, they're fat, they have anywhere from 30 to 40 degree shoulder angle generally, and they just seem to be a consistent propelling device for that powder and that primer, and it just seems to have more consistency and accuracy and precision with the bullet and where it lands consistently. And then once they get that consistency, which is the name of the game, it's not velocity, it's consistency, then if they can squeak out a little bit more velocity, that'll help with wind drift, right? And so getting a little faster, especially at 1,000 yards, will help some. But the name of the game is consistency. So they immediately thought, take that 6.5 PRC and neck it up to 7mm. That could be really cool. Now, I'm going to throw an opinion out here that might be unpopular. But a 6.5 PRC necked up to 7mm seems an awful lot like some cartridges that we already have. Kind of like the 300 PRC neck down to 6 to 7 is similar to the 28 nozzle or the 7mm Shooting Times Westerner. It's kind of the same thing. The 6.5 PRC necked up to 7mm is very similar to the 7 Psalm. Very similar. It's not that different from the 284, and the 284 Shaheen, and a lot of these, cartridges that are already doing good. So my opinion, it's a little controversial, is sometimes I think we just want to try something new for the sake of trying it new. I mean, if you were already shooting a 7 Psalm or a 284, do you think it's that big of a difference to switch over to their 7mm PRC that they designed? I just can't imagine it's going to be that much different. I think it's more they just want to try something new, something excited. Maybe maybe it gets boring after a while. It's the same thing in competitive fishing. A plastic worm has been working for a long time. A spinnerbait's been working for a long time. And newsflash, they still work today. You don't need anything else, but it kind of gets boring. So they're looking for this newest, fishing lure. And you go to the 2023 circuit, the pro circuit, and you ask them what they're using, and they're all using the newest, most trendiest lure. Did the old lures stop working? Did the bass get together and have a committee and decide that we're not going to bite these old lures anymore, that we're too smart for this? Of course not. But it's just something new. It's something exciting. I think it's the same way in competitive shooting. My personal opinion, I don't see how it's that much different. I don't see how the 7 PRC in this configuration would be that much different than a 7 Psalm, which they could have already been using, or a 284. So I think they just want to try something new. However, it's just interesting how the different communities look at it, And a lot of times when I make videos, definitely got my crowd, that's the hunting crowd, which is probably the bigger portion of you. And I'm in that crowd too, that, just love the partition, love the classic cartridges, love speed because they're hunting. And that's what makes sense to them. And I agree with that. I do have some people that are into building custom rifles and shooting it in competition or just for fun that watch my channel, and then they'll be more about ballistic coefficiency and about a more modern design cues in a cartridge, and maybe not as excited about a 270 Winchester as they are a 6.8 Western because it's new and modern and things like that. So I just thought, for all of you that watch my channel, all my subscribers, all the people that hopefully will tune into this, that was just a neat thing to think about. These 3 7mm PRCs kind of tell a big story of our shooting community as a whole. We have enthusiasts that love rifles, that love shooting. One is more concerned with shooting at a moving target that's alive and is going to provide meat. And then another group is more about a stationary target. And it's more about the extreme precision and every little thing that they can get out of the cartridge or the gun to be the best at their competition. And neither one is wrong, and they're both right, and they both have a place in our shooting world today. Which brings in me. I'm that Hornady cartridge that they came out with. I don't only hunt. I definitely hunt. I love hunting. In fact, I've never competitive shot anything, but I do love the precision game, and I do keep up on it to a degree. And I do love the more modern touches and the more modern cartridges and seeing how they compare and seeing how they can get better and better and better engineered, and just how tight can these groups get at 1,000 yards, and who has the most recent F-class record or whatever. I get excited about that too. So I'm like that Hornady cartridge, the 7 PRC, it's right in the middle. And I like both, I love that 300 WSM. It's a cool, modern cartridge. I love me some 30-06 though. I personally love my 270 short mag, but I have a ton of respect for that 270 Winchester from 1925. I like the PRC cartridges a lot, and I don't hate the Creedmoor cartridges. In fact, I like all of Hornadys cartridges. I think they're all cool. And I like the 6.8 Western, and I like all these new cartridges that people are coming out with. That doesn't mean I don't love the 257 Roberts, or the 6mm Remington, or the 22 Hornet, or the 300 Savage, the 284 Winchester, and of course I have a ton of respect for the 270 and the 7 mag and all these cartridges. There's a place for all of it, but I just found that really interesting. These 3 7mm PRCs, they kind of represent the 3 segments of the hunting, shooting, competitive world overall. And so who would win of these 3? Well, you know where I'm going to go. The one that Hornady came out with, I think, is the best. I really think it's just a modernized 7 Rem mag. And it's going to basically do everything a Rem mag is going to do, but in a more efficient, modernized, better case, with a better design, with a better chamber. It's not going to be extremely overbore and burn out your barrel. It's not going to be extreme on recoil, but it's definitely going to be a step up, from a 6.5 PRC. It's definitely going to be a step up. It's definitely going to give you more horsepower, and it's just a very well balanced, well designed overall cartridge. So, who wins between the 3? The 7mm PRC. I've enjoyed drinking coffee with you, talking to you guys. I know there's a lot of strong feelings out there about the 7mm PRC on both sides. I have fielded opposition from both sides about my opinions on the 7mm PRC, but I think it's a good cartridge. It's definitely interesting to talk about. Check in the description below. Got some links to Patreon. I don't expect you to support me, but if you want to, it's there. I have links to my website, links to Instagram and Twitter. Please follow me there. And if you have any questions for me, my email is down there. Love to talk to you in the comments. If you'll like this video, that truly helps. And if you'll subscribe to my channel, if you haven't already, I do appreciate it. And until next time, have a great day and take care.